I now call the regular board meeting of Goose Creek CISD School Board of Trustee to order. It's Monday, February the 3rd, 2025 at 6:02 p.m. Mr. Campisi, was the meeting properly posted?
Yes, it was.
And do we have a quorum?
We do have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Jackson, I will now yield to you for opening exercise and recognition. Thank you.
Okay, well, good evening, President Helen Brought-Timms, Dr. O'Brien, and board members. Tonight's opening exercises will be presented by the students from Highlands Junior School. We'll begin. I was jumping ahead there. At this time, I want to select what they're doing. The students that are performing are Aliyah Benavides, Dallas Fisher, Jalen Garza, Darian Godfrey, Jaden Griffin, Maiden Henderson, Aliyah Weatherwood, Yvette Macias, Jalen Martinez, Priscilla Rosas, Harley Skinner, Evelyn Venice, and Nyla Williams. The students will be performing songs of Beautiful December and Zoom Gali, and are under the direction of the choir director, Erica Filia, and principal, Jennifer Fiera.
Hold on.
You want to do the pledge first? Okay, I'm sorry. I had it backwards, I guess. Okay, so at this time, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance, cited by Aliyah Benavides, and the Texas Pledge, led by Harley Skinner. But before we begin that, if you'll rise, and Mr. Clem will lead us in the prayer.
I knew you would get that in there. All right. Everybody, please bow your head. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this beautiful day and this beautiful evening we can come together and meet as a community. I'd like to pray for your guidance, His wisdom, and your wisdom as we navigate through this agenda tonight. Make sure we make the correct decisions that will affect each face in our district. Finally, I pray that you give everyone here the blessing of safe travel home, and we pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen.
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For the Texas Pledge. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one
If you are a parent of one of these students, would you please stand and be recognized? Thank you again to Highlands Junior School Choir for an amazing performance. At this time, we would ask that Kendall David come up to work with United Way recognitions.
Hey, Susan, is the principal with us this evening from Highlands Junior? We could ask the
Yes,
principal to please
Jennifer
stand.
Fierro, I think I saw her in the back.
Oh, okay. The principal, please stand so we can recognize you. Thank you.
All right, good evening. President Barat Timms, Dr. O'Brien, our board. I am honored today to celebrate our United Way campaign for this school year. Goose Creek has had a long-standing relationship with the United Way of Greater Baytown Area and Chambers County in support of our students and their families. Goose Creek employees this year raised $54,455 to support the United Way's mission in helping our community. And on top of that, a total of 1,039 employees donated to the campaign. To help with this recognition, I'm honored to have Ms. Clapper here with us today. She's our United Way campaign and events manager. We appreciate everyone's commitment to this year's campaign, and there are 5 campuses here today who excelled in 2 categories. One, highest employee participation and highest monetary contribution for a small, medium, and large campus. When I call your name, please come to the front to be recognized. In the highest employee participation category, awarded with the 3rd highest employee participation is Clark Elementary with 73%. The principal at Clark is Kim Scheit, and the United Way campaign coordinator is Elizabeth Lewis. Ms. Scheit, did I miss someone who supported United Way? Ms. Scheit, did I miss someone who supported with United Way? Awesome. Thank you, Nancy. Awarded with the 2nd highest employee participation is Impact at 75%. And the campaign coordinator and principal is Ms. Laura Reyes. Did I miss someone too? Man, I'm missing all of you guys. Sorry, Ms. Mexis, thank you so much for your support. Awarded with the highest employee participation is Highlands Elementary at 96%. The principal of Highlands is Blanca Capetillo, and the campaign coordinator is Renee Stripling. And the highest monetary contribution for our small campus, this ranges from 1 to 69 employees, and the highest contributor, again, is Impact Early College High School, donating $3,440. And the campaign coordinator is Evelyn Mexis, and the principal is Laura Reyes. In the medium campus category, ranging from 70 to 99 employees, the highest contributor was Highlands Junior School at $2,115. And the principal is Jennifer Fierro. And last, in the large campus category, 100 to 234 employees, the highest contributor was Pumphrey Elementary, donating $3,932. The principal is Ms. Renee Meyer, and the campaign coordinator is Ms. Michelle Grimes. Thank you to our entire district, to our Board of Trustees for supporting our United Way campaign for Goose Creek CISD. Thank you to all of our campuses who participated. Ultimately, we're honored to have a partnership with United Way. They give back very heavily to our students, their families, and our district. So thank you very much.
Okay, at this time, I would ask that Dr. Norma Martinez come up so she can recognize our National School Counseling Week.
Good evening, President Barat Timms, Dr. O'Brien, and board members. National School Counseling Week 2005 School Counseling Helping Students Thrive will be celebrated this week, February 3rd through the 7th, to focus public attention on the unique contribution of our school counselors within the U.S. school systems. I would like to read our National School Counseling Week proclamation acknowledging that Goose Creek appreciates their counseling and student wellness professionals that work with our students and staff. Whereas school counselors are employed in public and private schools to help students reach their full potential, and whereas school counselors are actively committed to helping students explore their abilities, strengths, interests, and talents as these traits relate to career awareness and development, and whereas school counselors help families focus on ways to further the academic, career, and social-emotional development of their children, and whereas school counselors work with teachers and other educators to help students explore their potential and set realistic goals for themselves, and whereas school counselors seek to identify and utilize community resources that can enhance and complement comprehensive school counseling programs and help students become productive members of society, and whereas comprehensive school counseling programs are considered an integral part of the educational process that enables all students to achieve success in school, we hereby proclaim February 3rd through 7th, 2025 as National School Counseling Week. At this time, I would like to invite any members of our counseling and student wellness teams to come to the front to be recognized. And Ms. Guy, I believe that you too are a counselor. Please be recognized. The proclamation. Thank you again to our school counselors.
Okay, at this time, I would like to turn it back over to President Helen Barat Timms to move forward with our meeting.
Jackson and everyone who presented, and again, congratulations to our recognition for our schools, for the United Way, and again to our school counselors. You play a vital role in the lives of all of our children in the district, and we thank you for that. We will now move to item number 4 on our agenda, and that will be citizens participation. Citizens participation is a time during which the board will hear public concerns or public comments from those who have properly signed up to address the board. At regular board meetings, the board will allow public comments regarding whether the item is a topic on the agenda posted with notice of this meeting. Each speaker is reminded that he or she is limited in his or her presentation to a maximum of 3 minutes. And our secretary, Mr. Campisi, will be a timekeeper, which can also remember you should respect confidentiality concerns and refrain from attacking the personal character of any individual, student, staff members, or board member in addressing concerns or comments. Pursuant to state law and board policy, be legal, the board cannot consider or take action on concerns at this meeting unless they pertain to an item on the posted agenda for this meeting. Any deliberation or decisions on an item that is not posted for consideration at this time shall be limited to a proposal to be placed, the subject on the agenda for a future board meeting. And at this time, Ms. Garcia, we have one speaker. Okay, get my notes. We just be killing trees. Okay. We have Mr. Jeff Minson. Would you come up as our speaker tonight? Thank you.
Yeah, just before I start, there's just a point of clarification. I didn't know if the subject matter was related to the agenda item. So if there's any questions afterwards, we didn't know. Ms. Garcia and I couldn't determine. So.
Mr. Minson, is your microphone on, please?
Is my microphone on? Yes.
We can hear you now.
Yes, if I get a little closer, it'll be a little more helpful. All right, you ready? Madam Chair, members of the board, and Dr. O'Brien, thank you for the opportunity to participate in the GC 2035 facility workshops. I would like to share some of my learnings and takeaways from that experience. The workshops provided key data that was critical to mapping out a path forward for the district. Especially helpful was the demographic study, which as a former data architect met generally accepted standards, allowing the data to be relevant and reliable in producing a plan. Key takeaways that I had: 1, the number of Goose Creek students in 10 years will be nearly the same as today under current growth assumptions. The information did not factor in any impact to a reduction of students due to a potential state voucher program. The number of students in the south of the district will continue to decline due to the natural trend of fewer children in a household, and the number of students in the north of the district will increase due to new construction of homes. 3, the current elementary, junior high, and high school facilities have sufficient seats to house all students. The location of elementaries is not optimal, with too many facilities in the south of the district versus too few in the north of the district. Rezoning and/or building closing elementaries is needed to ensure there is not overcrowding in our elementary schools. To build a new elementary in the north of the city will take 4 to 5 years if we start immediately, and cost $30 to $40 million via a new school bond. Immediate action is needed via rezoning to relieve overcrowding in the north. More work is needed on the optimal utilization of our high schools and the related curriculum. The community is not supportive of significant additional facility costs that can be avoided. Options. 2 options were presented. 1, immediately rezone to alleviate overcrowding in the north, prepare a $40 million bond to build a new elementary school in the north, rezone again in 5 years after the new elementary school is built, close another elementary in the south for efficiency's sakes. Or 2, immediately rezone to alleviate overcrowding in the north and to allow minimal rezoning over the next 10 years. From my perspective and from what we discussed as a group, option 2 for me was the clear choice for our community. Thank you again for the opportunity to serve. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Minson. Okay. The next item, we will move to item number 5, approval of minutes. The minutes for the last regular board meetings, 3 meetings from December 3rd, 2024, Team of 8 training meeting, December 16th, 2024, special board meeting, and January 13th, regular board meeting. Each board member should have received, provided the minutes to you earlier in your board packet. And do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve.
A second?
Have a motion and a second, okay? Have a motion from Ms. Guy and a second from Mr. Clem to approve. Do we have any discussion? There being no further discussion, and all in favor, please raise your hand by show of hand. It's unanimous, approved. Thank you. Okay, we will move now to discussion item. I will now yield to our superintendent, Dr. Randy O'Brien. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. We will have a few items up this evening under the superintendent's report. Item 6A1 is being presented by our business office. It is the 25-26 budget overview. Let's welcome Ms. Clark. See, she had to get it in the video. Our record, 6 inches of snow here in Baytown, Texas.
Isn't that something? Snowmen and all. Yeah. So this is the time of year that you've all been waiting for, budget prep season. I mean, that right? Am I right? So it is upon us once again, and this year we have the hopeful benefit of having a legislative session upon us as well, and some changes at the federal level as well. So a lot of things moving and shaking and changing, and we're trying to manage as we go. But with that said, I'll go ahead and jump into, this is our first overview for the budget year. So we're not going to get too into the weeds or into the details, but we're just going to talk about the general layout and what we're hearing on the ground at the legislative level, and how we're going to manage the timeline from here forward. So as I said, we have a legislative session going on. It began on January the 14th. We continue to have budget challenges across the state, and most school districts are experiencing budget contraction, budget deficits, having to reduce spending, reduce expenditures, budget drivers and challenges. We'll talk about that, and also the budget calendar timeline. So the 89th legislature began on January 14th, and sine die is June 2nd. The elected Speaker of the House is Representative Dustin Burrows. In his acceptance speech for his speakership, he did mention supporting public education, so that is promising. The Lieutenant Governor appointed Brandon Creighton, the chair of the Senate Education Committee. He reduced the total number on the Senate Education Committee by 2. There are now 11 members. I believe it's 9 Republicans and 2 Democrats. The Senate has already produced its Senate Bill 2, which is the voucher bill, which emphasizes its importance to the Lieutenant Governor and by extension the Governor. With it being Senate Bill 2, the only bill that is before that is the budget bill, and that's required by law that they have a budget bill and pass it. The Senate's bill, the voucher bill, passed out of committee along party lines at 9-2. There is a fiscal note associated with that bill for vouchers that increases from $1 billion in this biennium to $4 billion by 2030. So it's got a huge price tag, and it'll be a recurrent expenditure. So every year they'll have to find the funds to pay for that bill. The House, I have not yet seen their version of the voucher bill, but I'm sure that it is going to be hitting the airwaves shortly due to the governor's State of the State address that he had on Sunday evening. and I will just mention a couple of things. He's got 7 emergency priorities. One is cutting property taxes. Another is investment in the state's water infrastructure. Number 3 is promising, increasing teacher pay. That's on his emergency item. Beefing up vocational career training. Also on his emergency list is immigration, diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, and that rounds out the 7. So he was in his top 7, he's banning diversity, equity, and inclusion programs in any entities that receive taxpayer money. So those are his emergency items that he set forth in his state of the state yesterday. A little side-by-side on the Senate bill as it pertains to public school funding versus private school funding. In the Senate bill, it has a $6,500 per student increase, well, not increase, but increasing the basic allotment from $6,160 to $6,500. With all other things being equal and no unfunded mandates, that would bring us around $9 million. So, of course, that doesn't take into account anything else, just all things being equal. Now, in the private school side, in the same bill, it would be $10,000 per student. Also, on the public school side, it would still, funding would still be based on average daily attendance as opposed to enrollment. We're one of only, I believe, 7 states in the union that fund that way, and it, of course, does hurt us, especially in the aftermath of COVID. And on the private school voucher side, it's going to be funded based on enrollment. So, and then, you know, they don't have the they do not have the curriculum or testing standards on the private school side like we do. And then, you know, of course, the special needs students population, they can exclude folks and they don't provide transportation and that sort of thing. So the bill will change, of course, because the House doesn't have its version of the bill yet. But whenever it goes, you know, whenever the House does present theirs, and then they pass it, and then it goes to, I believe it's called conference committee, is the term I was looking for, after it passes both chambers. So it will change. I mean, obviously we know this, so it's just something we're keeping our eye on, and it is certainly early in the game, but it would be very nice to be able to say, yes, we're going to receive that additional funding for basic allotment. All right, just some financial statistics. The Texas House Policy Analyst Ava DeLuna said in June that the basic allotment would have to be $7,500 to account for the inflation we've experienced since 2019, when they put set the basic allotment at $6,160. So we're not going to get that much, obviously. At $6,500, it's still quite under what we would need to receive to be made whole, just to keep up with inflation and our spending power. You know, just to be able to buy the same thing in 2025 that we were able to buy in 2019, it would have to increase to $7,500. Texas per student funding is $4,000 below the national average. So we still continue to lag behind there. Special ed weight, safety allotment, and pre-K funding have not increased since 2019. We get only half-day funding for pre-K still. Special education weights have not increased, yet the costs have astronomically increased for testing and providing services for these students. And another troubling trend that we've seen is that we have been inundated with audits. I mean, every time we turn around, it seems like we're getting audited, and not only are we being audited, but one recent OIG audit that was based on 2011 school year had a final resolution, and they are clawing back $120,000 on that. And it was from a 2017 OIG audit based on 2011 school year. So, I mean, we don't even keep records that long. So there are some activities behind the scenes where Freedom of Information Act is being used to request the data, because we don't have it. The records have been destroyed because it's not required to be maintained or retained. So, anyway, we've got that one, and then we've got another one. Most of these are related to SHARS, which is the personal care services that we receive in regards to SHARS. And they changed the rules, and they're retroactively applying them. And so we have several audits that are underway on appeal right now. One of them is 900 and something thousand. That's the one you've all probably heard of. That was the big one. But then there's another one for over $500,000. So it's, you know, it seems to be constant that we're getting quite a few audits. So it's something. It's the reason I say that is because it affects our fund balance. If we have to come back after the fact and pay for these audits that are years out, then, you know, obviously it has to be paid with our general fund balance. So just something to keep in mind. The budget shortfalls continue to plague the state. The Houston Chronicle estimated that last year, or last budget year, for this budget year during the planning that was last year, the aggregate shortfall for the districts in the Houston area was totaled $857 million. So we were all collectively grappling with $857 million in budget deficits last year. Aldine is proposing closing 7 schools. They have a $98 million deficit. Houston ISD doubled its projected 2025 budget deficit for this year, and they're signaling it might spur layoffs because of that amount. It's half a billion now. Spring ISD 13 million, Cy-Fair 138 million, Midland 41 million, Austin 92, Coppell 9. I mean, and we're just getting started. This is just the beginning of February, so I look for a lot more budget deficits to be starting to be discussed and publicized. So the goals and assumptions are you know, pretty much the same as what we have annually. We want to, if you have a budget deficit to contend with, you can't really get there if it's any sizable budget deficit without looking at payroll and staffing, and you have to be, you know, you have to be lean and mean. And of course, we're always looking at operating efficiencies and program costs. We certainly want to remain competitive. We want to offer employee compensation package and remain competitive and be able to recruit with those that compensation package. We're also assuming a flat ADA. We have slightly, you know, we've seen slight declines in enrollment, and we'll have that a little bit more detail on another slide following this one, but we're just going with slightly decreased and flat average daily attendance. Of course, we want to monitor any new revenue sources or unfunded mandates that might come out of this legislature. The primary budget drivers are the usual ones: average daily attendance, that's your, you know, bread and butter for revenues, and expenditures. Payroll is always 80% plus of the expenditures. So those are the two main things that you have to tie down whenever you're preparing your budget. As I said previously, you can see that we've had we maxed out on enrollment in 2023, and now we've seen slight declines in the years following that, the 2 years following, including this year. We have seen it decrease. I think it's around, today's was like 153 decrease, I believe. So it fluctuates, and it tends to decrease in the spring semester. Not only the enrollment, the ADA percentage as well, you know, just tends to decrease in spring historically, and that's typical for most school districts. You see, we still have not broken the $22,000 ADA since 2020. So we have less students, less ADA coming in, less revenue coming in, and of course our expenditures have increased due to inflation. So just some of the accomplishments to highlight a couple of those from the last couple of budget years. This is going to be year 3 of budget reductions. So I know everyone's, it's not fun when you have to reduce, but it's the situation that we all find ourselves in, just due to the fact that we haven't had an increase in basic allotments since 2019. I know it's repetitive, but it's just the way things are right now. But because of the work that we did, we were able to provide a 4% general pay increase to all of our employees last year. And that was only possible because we reduced our budget by $13 million, and we closed non-campus positions district-wide. We adjusted high school and junior school schedules, and we applied staffing ratios to elementaries. So the work continued last year and the year before. We closed nearly 100 positions. We had a $12 million budget reduction plan, and we did all this without layoffs, and we also reduced departmental budgets. So lots of work has gone into this in the last couple of years, and this year will be no exception. The challenges, of course, are going to be the no additional funding, the inflation, and then teacher competition is very, much in play here, especially on the east side of Houston, and our neighbors to the east are very competitive. We've got our neighbor that, pays the highest teacher salary in all of the state of Texas, and they're right in our backyard. So that makes it exceptionally competitive on the east side of Houston for us. And of course, there is always the potential for additional charter schools or other options for parents as we move forward. All right, so this is a summary of, and this is very preliminary. This is just the first attempt at trying to nail this down and what the financial picture looks like. But I'll go line by line here, just explaining where we are and what this tallies up to, and what the work looks like ahead of us. So the board adopted a slight budget deficit for 24-25 at $1.8 million, and the negatives are going to be the items that add to the budget deficit, and the positives are the ones that offset. So then the board also adopted a lower tax rate, 1 cent lower. It was about a $1.5 million cost, so that's a negative. Then last year, remember, we transferred in from our quote-unquote savings account, Chapter 313 in FTZ, which is our capital improvements project fund. We transferred $11.8 million into the general fund to help us offset some expenditures. Then in order to keep premiums low for employees, in order to keep insurance premiums lower for employees, we contributed $3.5 million in order to keep those increases nominal.
We found a phone earlier,
Ooh.
and I'm holding on to it. We think it's an employee's phone, so
Okay.
my apologies, Ms. Clark.
Was that a barking dog? I don't know what that was. And so we did contribute that $3.5 million to health insurance to keep the premiums low, or as low as possible with nominal increases only. And then we, of course, have the decrease in ADA for this year, offset slightly by the penny yield, but it still gives us a negative of about $640,000. The one positive, or one of two positives, I guess, or actually this is singly a positive, is the increase in investment earnings. Now, this is because of our interest rate environment. We've had higher interest rates. Obviously, it's not always good when you're trying to finance something, but it's good whenever you're earning interest. So it has its pros and cons, but something to be cognizant of is a bill that has been proposed by Senator Middleton for requiring school districts to invest in, like we invest in our investment pools right now, like Lone Star and Texas Range, and we have several, but they're very, very, very conservative. There's nothing, we're not investing in anything risky or anything of that nature. But Mr. Middleton has proposed a bill that would require us to have our money invested in one of two places, none of which are investment pools. So kind of some local control would be taken there if we were required to invest in those two entities. I don't have the names of the entities there, but it's in the bill. And if we didn't, we would have to, respond and provide a reason as to why we didn't. So my concern with that is, and it's all controlled through the comptroller according to the bill. So I don't know what that would look like, and that the fact that we wouldn't have our money in our possession is one concern, and also we wouldn't be able to shop our own rates. And so are they going to offer the same rates that we're able to enjoy with our investment pools that we've had for years, decades? So just something to think about, that's on the horizon. And also, if interest rates continue to decrease, this may not hold up. So we just don't know what tomorrow brings with interest rates. We can project, and we can listen to the experts and think we know, but we don't actually know until we see it through. So just something to keep in mind. Then, of course, we had the school consolidation that saved almost $2.2 million. This is an estimate only, and this is just to incorporate it in here for illustrative purposes, so you could see if the board wanted to approve a 2% general pay increase, it would cost somewhere in the neighborhood of $5.2 million. And that would give us total reductions required to balance the budget for 25-26 of almost $20 million. However, if the board gives me directive and feedback to proceed with doing such a transfer for this year, we could potentially do that, because we were fortunate enough this year again to receive more FTZ money than what we thought we were going to. It still hasn't gone down to the historical $900,000 that we get most years, and so it's running in the $3.5 million range. So we're looking at that, and then we had a surplus in workers' comp of about $1 million, and then the remainder is with Chapter 313 monies that came in. So even with that offset, now something else, the asterisk there, again, next year, just like this year, because it's one-time money and it's coming from our savings account. It's not recurring revenue that we're always going to have, right? It's going to come, and the savings account is, that's a finite number usually, and so we'll have to make that up next year. So if we utilize this 13.5 next year when we start 26-27, if we don't get additional funding from the legislature, and we don't have additional unfunded mandates, we will have to make up that $13.5 million. Even with that $13.5 million, we're still at a deficit of $6.2 million. And that equates to around 139 positions at $45,000 each, which is our average salary per employee across the board. So, of course, that can change depending on what positions we're talking about. But that's what it would take to balance the budget for 26-27. 25-26. But just know that in 26-27, we'd have to make up that 13.5. So are there any questions on this slide? I know this slide is the one that...
So I think it's just important to note that you brought up that the legislature's in session now, and they're making these proposals. In essence, it's eroding away from local control. In 2021 session, they removed the negotiability of our Board of Trustees for 313 agreements, and it was sunsetted in 2022. So any of those that we have remaining will expire in the next few years. And then furthermore, they're proposing once again to remove our own savings account from our control and putting it with the comptroller, and we can make possibly withdrawals from it upon request. So there's a really strong push legislatively to take away the authority of the locally elected Board of Trustees. So I'm a little bit concerned that we're in the position that we're in financially, not because of mismanagement or overhiring. It's really that inflation has impacted us. You had it on the slide up there, 22% over the last 6 years.
Right.
And there's some question as to whether or not this session will come through and deliver any concession for inflation. So I just want the board to hear what you said in regards to these matters.
Absolutely. You nailed it. Any questions on this slide?
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
So when you say we have to make up this 13.5 million,
Yes.
how are we supposed to do that?
We'll have to have another budget reduction year if we don't get additional funding from the legislature.
Okay. So when you said, I get it, but I was thinking like there's some way we're going to make 13.5 million, but there's not. That means we're going to be cutting again.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Without funding.
Without
Right.
additional funding, yes, sir.
Right.
And that's correct.
We have fewer employees today than we did when this all started.
And this is assuming the tax rate doesn't change.
Yes. Yeah, that can, and any other changes that they put in place that, I mean, if they want to reduce property taxes by $10 billion, that's the amount they want to reduce it by. So that's a that's a large number. So I don't know exactly how they're going to go about doing that, but I'm sure compression is going to be part of it.
But in essence, what you've presented here is the best case scenario.
Yes.
Unless we get short of additional funding.
Right. If we got what the Senate bill provides for additional basic allotment, you could offset that by $9 million, but you can see even with that, we would still have a deficit. So it wouldn't be as much, but it would still be a deficit. Any other questions? All right, so I'll just go over the timeline here. You see all these items in yellow are actual board meetings, and the red in the activity column is going to indicate board action. Of course, tonight is the just basic overview. On the 17th, you'll have an HR update. You see the lilac there. We're having our internal committee meetings for budget reduction, and those kick off tomorrow. We have 3 of those, and then we have the committee come and present to Executive Council, and then we present the proposed budget reduction plan to the board on March 3rd, and then we take your feedback and any other internal, any other changes that may come about in that time period, and then we would ask the board to approve the budget reduction plan on April 7th. The only question I have here or a couple in red is, if the board wants a workshop, then an additional workshop, because we'll be having those. If they want a budget reduction workshop, we'll have to have a special board meeting. And I just put out a couple of dates. The 24th is a Monday, but that we can certainly determine that later after the initial reduction plan is presented. Then you see on the 19th, we have the compensation plan that we'll ask you to approve there. And then the entire budget will be adopted on the 16th. So that's...
And to your point on the calendar, that will be after Sendai, but it won't be before potential special sessions that could ensue. So we may or may not have a clear picture of the funding projected from this legislative session at the end of the session. If vouchers isn't passed quickly, and then notification from either party whether or not other funding will be allocated for public schools, we won't know. So this is a beautiful calendar, I might add, Ms. Clark, but it's still subject to the actions or inactions that occur in Austin.
You're exactly right, and you have to adopt the budget based on current law. You can't, if the law is not in place, which it most likely will not be. Now, I've heard, I think, coming from the House that we're absolutely not having any special sessions this year, but it's early, so
Following
we'll see.
4 special sessions last year, right?
Yes, so we'll see.
So this Mays Middleton proposal for us to invest, is that mandatory?
Yes, if it passes.
Yeah, it has,
yes.
right. And when will that take place? We don't have an idea either.
It's not on the emergency.
To the bill, right.
Yeah, it's not on the emergency list. It's not a high priority, but because of the bill number being in the hundreds, it's not in the high priority, but it's been proposed. So we'll just be tracking it. Any other questions?
Thank you, Ms. Clark.
Thank you.
We will continue on, Dr. O'Brien.
Yes, ma'am. Next up, we have the rezoning update.
All right. Good evening, President Barat-Thames, Dr. O'Brien, our Board of Trustees. We're here to present the rezoning recommendation and our committee work that has occurred over the last 6 months. I'm Kendall David. I'm the Executive Director of Community Engagement. I have a team with me. Nancy Bonds, Director of Communications.
And Matt Bollinger, Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources.
Also want to point out that we have our incredible members of both GC 2035 and our District Task Force Rezoning Committee. If y'all will wave your hands, stand up. If you were on the District Rezoning Task Force or GC 2035, yes, thank you. A lot of work went into looking at rezoning. I think everyone who stood will agree that it's very complex. A lot of work and brain power has to go into looking at a comprehensive district rezone. So we wanted to start off today with just talking about why are we rezoning. 2 primary reasons. The first is balancing enrollment, so preventing overcrowding in high growth areas, which in our case is on the north side of our district, and ensuring that we're utilizing our schools that are currently at lower capacity. That, for us, is on the south side of our district. We also want to make sure, Bridget just came and presented our budget and the complexities with that. And so we want to make sure we're being very efficient with our campuses. And so what we mean by that is deferring the future school construction. We don't have a school planned to be built as of right now, so we need to make sure we're utilizing our campuses as best as possible for next year. We want to minimize purchase of portable buildings. They are very expensive. They're hard to maintain, and most teachers and students do not like receiving or giving instruction in portables. And then also avoid operating schools significantly below capacity. So we had some rezoning objectives that we kept at the forefront of our mind when we're talking about making decisions on our school zones. The first is to draw attendance zones in a way that supports efficient and effective use of our facilities and resources, reduce overcrowding of campuses, look at future growth and what those projections look like, and plan the best as we can based on our knowledge. Involve the community and get feedback and evaluate that feedback. Looking at students' proximity to a campus, being mindful of traffic patterns and ensure that we're transporting and providing zones that are as safe as possible for our students. And then, of course, always keeping in mind that this is about the kids. So what has our timeline look like? We really started this discussion based on the data that was presented at the May 2024 board meeting from our demographer. And that definitely showed a need to have a comprehensive rezone, again, due to the fact that we have many schools in the north side of our district that are at or over capacity, and schools on the south side of our district that are under capacity. In August of 2024, we presented the vision for the District Rezoning Task Force in GC 2035, and we're given the green light by our board to form those 2 committees. From October to January, from August to October, really the GC 2035, we focused on the long-range facility plan, but that ran hand in hand with rezoning. From October to January, GC 2035 took a deep dive into rezoning, and Nancy's going to go over what that looked like. From November to January, we had 5 district rezoning task force meetings. And then December 20th through January 10th, we released our zoning options, a Q&A, and then a community survey to get feedback based on the options presented to the community.
So for the district rezoning task force, that was an employee task force. We had about 35 members, administrators, teachers, different staff from different departments and campuses across the district. And we developed those objectives that Kendall shared. And the first thing we did was we evaluated the demographic study to look for areas of concern where we knew we needed to make adjustments in the rezoning. So we worked with the demographer, and we were provided option A, which we provided a lot of feedback on. We really wanted to accomplish clean feeder patterns, which wasn't in option A. So we provided a lot of feedback, looked at it very closely, and then we were given option B. We still had some feedback for option B, some refinements. We're looking at individual planning units. We're looking at how many neighborhoods are changing schools. We're looking at transportation. And that's where option C came from. There were still some requested refinements from there. Actually, there were parts of B and parts of C that people really liked that they wanted to combine together. So we worked with the demographer to see if an option D was viable, but it wasn't. It wasn't as imbalanced as B and C were. So those were the 2 options that were provided to the public for feedback on. So we evaluated every bit of the community feedback. We looked at every vote, every comment to dig in there. Kendall's going to show us more information on that later. And we also worked on developing grandfather clause and communication plan. With GC 2035, it was a lot of similar work there. When we looked at the demographic study, we also looked at it in comparison to the long-range facility plan since they had been working on that. And they reviewed options B and C, offered some feedback as well. And then they voted on their recommendation at the GC 2035. We also evaluated every piece of the feedback from the public and worked on developing the grandfather clause and communication plan.
Okay, so on the screen here, you can see 3 maps, and so these are the maps that we're looking at. The current zoning boundaries are, of course, current for these are the elementary maps. Is on the left, and then option B is in the middle, and option C is on the right. And so, as shared, there were several items to consider whenever the committee was looking at the different options. Least amount of disruption, making sure that we're not rezoning more students than we have to. Eliminating pocket zones and making sure we're improving clear zoning boundaries so that they're clean, they're easy to follow. Transportation was a consideration, then also pure, as Nancy shared, pure feeder patterns. And so you can go to the next slide. So for elementary, a couple of things to consider. Consolidating Lamar on the south side was a factor, and then also providing relief for Pumphrey Elementary and Highlands Elementary on the north side was a factor. So there's a lot to take in here on the numbers, so I'm going to just talk through a little bit of this. These are based off of functional capacities, including the special programs that are currently at the school. And so what is functional capacity? Functional capacity is the number in which all students are zoned to that school, including the programs that are located at that school. It does not consider transfers, student transfers, or programs that may relocate students. And so for an example, if you'll look at current capacity, Highlands Elementary is at 131%. So that's its functional capacity. In our membership report, its current capacity is at 120%. So it's 11 percentage points lower. And so why the difference? Well, the difference is because of student transfers or students in programs that may place them in a different school than they're zoned to. And so that gives a quick example. So if you look at option B and option C, what you'll notice compared to the current capacity is that there's a reduced variance, and so that was one of the goals. So in our current elementary zoning, you'll see that at the low end, Asheville Smith is at 58% capacity, and then at the high end, Harlem Elementary is at 131% capacity. So that's quite a bit of variance from one school to another. So that creates staffing issues, that creates operational issues, and also equity issues. And so when you look at option B and option C, even though, of course, you can't have it perfect where they're all 87%, but you can see that there's much less variance. Another note to consider, which probably jumps out at most people looking at this slide, is that there are still some schools that are over 100% capacity with option B and option C. And so again, I want to just a few things to consider on this. First of all, this does not consider, again, transfers or program changes. And so transfer and program changes can swing percentages quite a bit. And I'm gonna give an example here in a minute on that. And then also what's important is the forecasting of 10 years down the road, what would that capacity be? So you can see that for most of the schools, the forecasting 10 years down the road is there's not a dramatic shift. And that's good because that means there's probably more consistency, hopefully, with that school's population over the next 5, 6, or 7 years. Okay, so I want to use, no, stay there. I want to use Harlem and Highlands as an example. So you'll notice that Harlem, right now, their current capacity, according to this, their functional capacity is at 73%, and Highlands is 131%. And so what will happen with options B and C is, I mean, obviously Highlands Elementary is over capacity. There's a big concern there. They're on the north side. And so you'll see that it will provide relief for Highlands Elementary with options B and C. However, Harlem tends to jump up a little bit over 100%. However, Harlem does have 3 programs, and so if there's a relocation in programs or we're not considering student transfers, it would be very manageable to get that number down to the high 80s or low 90s% with 1 program change or 2 program changes, or just considering the transfer. So this, I guess my point is this chart doesn't consider those transfers, which we know is going to create some fluctuation with the population. Okay, you can go to the next slide. And then what we're going to, so elementary is by far the most cumbersome piece of this rezoning process. For junior high, again, you can see that the same filters that we went through as far as least amount of disruption. But the primary goal here is just to make sure that we accommodate a clean feeder pattern from elementary to junior high, which we currently do not have. And so a couple of boundaries, if you look at current versus option B, and then you go to option C, there are some adjustments made, and those adjustments help to accommodate those clean feeder patterns for elementary. When we get to the numbers, you'll see that the numbers aren't much of a concern like they are for elementary, because we recently built a 6 junior high, and that's really helped with our north capacity at the junior high level. And then at the high school, go to the next slide. High school map, same explanation as it is for the junior high. You see our current map, and then our secondary option 2, and then our high school option B, and then option C. Very little shifts. And so if you look at that, and again, the shifts account for making sure we have clean feeder patterns. So there's a few rezoning options, and we'll talk about grandfathering here in a minute to address that concern. But there's a couple of changes just to accommodate for that pure feeder pattern. Okay, and then similar to the elementary, same idea is that we're looking at functional capacity numbers, so it's not considering transfers or programs, which can shift. But if you look at the numbers here, there's minor adjustments again for the same purpose. One point that I want to make is for Green Junior School. What you don't see currently, its functional capacity is at 73%. The demographic studies show that projected out 10 years, the school will be close to 100% capacity. And so even though there's a slight dip in that number, its capacity goes up to 88%. That's a whole lot better than the current zoning forecasting and what it's forecasting for. And then there's a couple of adjustments at the high school level as well, where you can see those numbers shift based off the zoning maps.
Okay, so as I stated before, evaluating feedback was a big piece of the work for our district task force and GC 2035. They did take a survey based on the preference for zoning option. Our community, they had a preference for option B, 71.5% preferred option B, and 28.5% preferred option C. The majority also was the same with our GC 2035 committee, with 62.5% preferring option B and 37.5% preferring option C. So a big part of the work that GC 2035 and the task force did is really looking at the written responses. We were looking, this was organized by neighborhood, by preference chosen, and we're really looking for a pattern of a community that had a strong voice in not wanting to move to a certain area or having a huge conflict with the rezone. And we never saw any patterns that really stood out. On the written responses, 56% provided no feedback. So that question was, what are your concerns? What feedback do you have for the district? So essentially, they voted on their zoning option and did not provide feedback. 17 were against either option B or C and voiced that in their feedback. 11% supported option B or C. They were happy that they were being rezoned or with the rezoning option. 5% had various questions or concerns. Anything from what will this do to classroom sizes, to where will special programs be held, those sort of things. 5% had questions about grandfathering. 4% did not want to rezone at all. They wanted to keep all district lines the same. And 2% had transportation questions or concerns. So let's talk about grandfathering. Our current recommendation is for our elementary students, for elementaries, for current fourth graders. As you saw, there's very little wiggle room across the board at elementary. And so we looked at what would happen if we included siblings or additional grades, and ultimately it's not doable. Current fourth graders are really all that we can look at for elementary grandfathering. And that's pretty typical. The highest grade level affected, that's what we've offered in the past. However, we did want to look at the possibility of additional grade levels where we could manage that. And so our recommendation is for 6th and 7th grade students be offered grandfather clause, and at the high school, 9, 10, and 11th grade be offered the ability to grandfather. I will tell you, we pulled numbers from previous years. It does turn out to be very a wash, essentially. You have about 100 to 150 students that transfer or that choose to stay at those campuses at all of the high schools. One thing to note about our grandfather clause is transportation must be provided by the parent or a student driver. Siblings of grandfathered students must be rezoned. So if you have a current 7th grader who's going to stay, grandfather 8th grader, and a sibling coming up into 6th grade, they will have to go to their zoned campus. And ultimately, students must maintain good standing in attendance, tardies, and behavior in order to uphold that grandfather clause. We determined these recommendations based on the work from both of our committees. The junior high grandfather clause was very close with the GC 2035 committee, with 55.6% choosing 6th and 7th grade and 44.4% choosing 7th grade only. Not as close with 9, 10, and 11 at 81.8 and 18.2 for 11th grade only. The commentary behind that was, at high school, those students are there. They need to be offered the option to stay. However, especially because we have clean feeder patterns, it would be a benefit if those students were forced to go to their zone schools because they will be following those students to high school. With the district rezoning task force, same result, 6th and 7th, 75% agreed it should be 6th and 7th grandfathered, 25 7th grade only, and 9, 10, 11 at 81.3, and 18.8 for 11th grade only. And that's how we developed that recommendation. Ultimately, our recommendation tonight is to approve rezoning option B. It's what the committee voted on as their preference. It's what GC 2035 voted on as their preference, and it's also the committee's preference for our district rezoning task force based on that feedback. And then also approving the grandfather clause for current 4th graders, current 6th and 7th graders, and current 9, 10, and 11th graders.
As we've shown, these two committees have worked on a lot over the last several months, but there's still a lot of work to do. Our last two meetings with each group focused on these items here, thinking about what needs to be the next steps, including communicating with the families of any of the affected students, whether it be just a rezone or also the special programs, which we're going to do a full evaluation on to see the best placement location for those programs. Also, communicating the grandfather clause options, sending out a survey so they can choose which option they would like, and a timeline with that. We'll also need to look at pre-K zoning as well. And also, HR will be working on staffing allocations as we are shifting, students and numbers. Staff will be shifted as well. So we'll have to look at that, and with special programs also. And then also looking at technology rollover. So not just the physical technology of maybe devices moving, but also like licenses to programs that will need to be shifted as well. And of course, transportation, seeing the new routes and how that'll all work. Any questions?
Just a note to the board that this will come up on the agenda to be voted on later this evening.
Yes, sir.
Do we anticipate the enrollment at GCM to become low enough to be back in 5A for UIL purposes? Or has that been a consideration?
I don't know the answer to that question. Dr. Price, do you know if Lee Martinez has looked at that at all?
Mr. Martinez?
Coincidentally, they have a report later this evening. We can ask that question.
Well, I think we really need to consider that when we're doing special programs, et cetera.
Sure.
Because if we're going to grandfather, I can see where we could end up being a 5A school still playing in 6A in a year.
Yep.
As the plan develops. And we need to be careful about that.
Thank you.
And it looks like just from the chart that in about, 8 years, we'll be back at the same capacity we are now at GCM, so we'll have that same problem again.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Thank y'all. Appreciate
Thank you.
Our next report will be a transportation update. Ms. Ducote and Dr. Price will be presenting. Are y'all presenting together?
Yes. Yes, sir. Good evening, President Barak Timms, board members, Superintendent Dr. O'Brien, Anthony Price. I have with me two of the departments up under the Operations Services umbrella. We will start off with Transportation. Director Patricia Ducote will be follow that with the Athletic Department with Athletic Director Lee Martinez and Assistant Director Greg Smith. Ms. Ducote.
Dr. O'Brien and school board members. I'm very excited to be here for the very first time in front of you guys, so thank y'all for the opportunity.
We're missing the West Texas draw from Mr. Walterscheid. Howdy. Welcome.
Thank you. So I'm just going to give a quick transportation update for you guys. So I just took a little snippet of our team. It wasn't everybody, so hopefully I can get a better picture this summer when we start our next school year. But just wanted to give you all a brief little snippet of our staff members. For route services, just want to give you a quick rundown from last year, 23-24 school year to this year. We were able to reduce 27 routes total, which roughly was 277,431 miles that we saved in travel. We will still travel just a little bit over 2 million miles for this school year, but we did see a reduction. For the Self-Find Your Parent app and student badges, we are still mitigating through that every single day. We did start with our implementation and mandating our high school students upon as of October 21st for them to start scanning on and off the buses so that parents can start looking at that and we can start also tweaking it and see where we need to adjust and what we need to work on with new technology. November 11th, we did that for the junior schools, and then January 13th, we started off with the elementary schools. And of course, with every start of our new implementation, we start seeing little things where we have to tweak here and there. So every day is a learning opportunity for us, and we're working through those day by day so we can get everything better, and hopefully we have a great start of the 25-26 school year with that. We do have the parent app where we send notifications to the parents, and we do try to get them and encourage them to get that downloaded. That way they have that accessibility at hand for their students. We still have some parents that are asking lots of questions about it, and we try to work with them every single day on that aspect. So just wanted to share with y'all a little quick update. I know you guys probably have this presentation with you guys, but just a couple bullet points on what it takes to be a school bus driver in Texas. It's not just hand your keys and let's go hit the road. It's a little bit more in depth of that, but we do work very hard every day with our new members and our new bus drivers, even those that come in to our department with CDLs, and we go over certain procedures and requirements just to make sure that we're putting the best person out on the road to transport our students. I did want to brag a little bit about this, but as of February of 2022, GCCIC Transportation became a third-party testing facility with the state of Texas DPS. That means that every single new driver or even somebody that comes in with a Class A without a PNS endorsement, we will train and they will test, paper test and behind-the-wheel test at our facility. So we get audited constantly from DPS to make sure that we are top of the line. And so I do have to be I'm very proud of it, but I do have to brag a little bit on our department because we always get an A score. And so that's very a high standard for us. So I'm excited about that. But as you can see on the slide, every year from the day that we started, we have grown in the number of people that we test at our facility. So that is something to be very, very proud of.
I just wanted to give a shout out to you, Mr. Cody. By being a certified trainer and certifier, it's also a recruiting tool because someone could be coming from another district to be certified in our district and realize, wow, they have a nice new fleet of buses. Wow, these people are really nice here. So I want to commend you for going the extra mile to have trainer of trainers in place.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. For field trips, I did just want to brag a little bit. Of course, our mission is to provide students with the educational experiences outside of the classroom with real-world experiences and learning opportunities. So just gave a quick rundown with the number of field trips we provided last year, and then as of January 11th, we've had just a little over 10,000 field trips so far. We look at projecting 100,000 miles again this year with field trips, and everything that we can do to ensure that our students continually success is what we want to do. And then just another quick rundown with our shop facts. They help keep our fleet in tip-top shape to safely transport our students to and from school daily with preventative maintenance and work orders that get submitted from our drivers. Little things, like we try to encourage our drivers, even the slightest knock that they hear on the bus, report that so that we can get that taken care of before it becomes a major issue. And just a little tidbit of fuel gallons that we use from one year to the next. As of October, of course, we've only used 110,000 gallons, but fuel costs does increase drastically from year to year. But that's something that we deal with on a daily basis. So just wanted to give you all a quick rundown. And then just a quick snippet of our team, our leadership team, and I couldn't do what I do without them, and our drivers and monitors do a great job every single day. Thank you, guys.
Any questions for Mr. Cody?
Who is that bad driver in the middle?
The tall one?
Yeah.
Could we go to slide 3?
Sure.
And talking on this year, the 24-25 school year, do you have 166 routes running concurrently each, or is that like half in the morning, half at night?
So that's 160 routes total. That's AM and PM routes. So the AM and PM routes run the same routes.
Sure,
so
but
that's total.
So at any given time, it's about 80-ish.
At any given time, we have 167.
I just know when I'm on the road at 7:30 a.m., there's a bus everywhere I go.
We have 166 buses on the road, AM and PM.
So your total projected miles for this year versus last year is what, about 270,000 less?
Yes, approximately 277,000.
Translate that into dollar savings for me.
Oh, that is
That's
probably...
what school board members like to hear.
Okay. So currently, I believe TA has it set up for $4.87 a mile.
Dang.
I believe.
Okay, so that's a significant savings.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. You should brag about that. Yeah. Moving to slide 6. Does this make us any money?
So not very much, but it does. We do have MOUs with other districts, and we do charge them $200 a fee if they would like for us to use our facility for a training, for testing.
And once you pay all the state fees out of that, how much goes into your transportation coffer?
So all of that goes into purchasing. I'm not sure where it really goes.
Okay. It disappears into...
I believe general funds.
I understand. That's where my marching band money went. The same black hole, yeah. Same question on slide 8. Are we on fuel purchased? Are we on schedule to purchase less fuel this year?
So
because of fewer routes?
We are on schedule to projectively maybe a few gallons less, only because the increase is a little high this year.
Okay, but that'll be a wash most likely on price?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. All right, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate your report.
Thank you.
That was a report from transportation. They bring the little giants to school, and we get them home safely in the afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Cody. And now for your entertainment pleasure, athletics.
So thank you for having us here today. I do want to thank Patricia and Transportation for all they do for athletics. They also, that service does provide athletic coaches, the coaches the opportunity to train here and become certified drivers. So it's definitely a good advantage for our coaches to have it right here at home. So right now you should have an iPad in front of you, but before we get to that, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. So thank you to all the board members, and of course, Dr. O'Brien. Thank you for having us here. Go ahead and press the middle button twice, really fast. And then something's going to pop up that's asked for your name. You don't need to put your full name, or you could put some initials so we know.
It's going to be the ID first.
It'll be the ID's coming up. As soon as it gets up on the board, just plug in that ID, so 428009. Plug that in, and then we'll wait for you guys to sign up as your names are popping up. Going to use this opportunity to tell you why we're doing this. Some of the stuff that we go over is repetitive, so we just kind of want to give you a different, come at you guys a little bit different with a little bit of creativity, a little bit of fun, just to try to give you guys the same information at the same time, try to make it a game as well. No, you don't.
Is everybody in?
Is everybody? I think everybody should be. 1, 2. Mr. Sampson, you good? He said he's good.
You know, I'm old school, so.
I don't have an 8-track in there, though. No. No 8-track players. Now, let's go.
We good?
Yes, sir. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So you'll have about, as you answer, before we get started, I want to say, it's the color that you're going to pick, okay? So don't pick a letter or a number. It's going to be the color. So you're going to have a couple of questions coming at you here. So again, thank you for tonight, and we want to go ahead and get started here in about 2 seconds. First question, of the three high schools, which one made the playoffs for volleyball? And if you look on the board, you see the colors, same thing on your screen. So that's for the honors part. All right. All right, so we got Campese in the lead right now. All right, so we're going to keep going. So if you pick GCM, the answer is correct. So GCM, I've made the playoffs in volleyball. This is one of the things that we send out throughout the district just to inform the school districts and my supervisors and everybody else who they're playing and where. And it's a good opportunity for the kids to get some notoriety as well throughout the district. So they at the 6A level, they made the playoffs and they put up a good fight for a little while, but in the end, they didn't go their way. But hats off to GCM volleyball for making the playoffs.
Yeah.
So we'll go to the next one. Which high schools made the tennis playoffs for team tennis? Wow. So if you said all the above, that's correct. All three tennis teams made the playoffs, and it was definitely man, that's awesome. I'm very proud of all of them. Extremely proud of Lee High School because coach has really done a good job there. A couple years ago, they didn't even have the numbers to get in to compete every week. These guys making the playoffs this year was very huge for them. We got a first-year head coach at Sterling who got to coach against his old school, LaPorte, and beat them in the playoffs. It's a little hint for the next one. And then, of course, GCM had it. Let's move on to the next question. Sterling Tennis went how many rounds into the playoffs?
I keep missing.
If this was on paper, we'd be doing good.
Yeah.
All right. So Sterling went 3 rounds. This was the last one we sent out to the school district. They beat LaPorte, as mentioned just a while ago. So I gave you a hint. There was at least 2. Then they beat Kingwood Park in round 2. Getting beat by A&M Consolidated, who's very tough, man. They kind of got our number right now, but for a first-year coach at Sterling to continue that tradition was really big for us because Sterling Tennis has done a very good job for us throughout the years. So good for the new coach there. So, next question: which combination of schools qualified for the regional cross-country meet in Huntsville? That's a very tough one, but this is an honors test here. This is the Athletic Academy. So
that's what I was doing.
Soccer.
Ever since I got the first one, I hadn't got one either.
All right, so for cross-country regionals, we had boys individual at GCM, John Abarca, and then we had Gavin Cortez at RSS.
Yeah.
And then we had REL boys team qualify, which was very big for us. Very proud of all the coaches there who come on and do a great job, man. You see them running all over the place, and bless their heart because it's not a very good time to be running. It's pretty hot out there, even in the morning. Next question, Sterling boys and girls water polo both advanced to the second round of the playoffs. Who did they beat to get there?
Look, eventually, one of these going to be right. Look.
I think you got it right.
Look at you. All right, so the Sterling boys and girls, the team they defeated was Aldine.
I went to green and it was wrong.
That was in the first round. They advanced to the area round. We're just kind of just sharing with you what we sent out. They advanced to the area round. The boys were defeated by Brazoswood, and the girls were defeated by Clear Springs. But hats off to both of them making the playoffs, and they did a good job with that. Which junior high had the highest passing percentage for all athletes for the second 9-week report card? So this is a straight guess for you guys.
Look, I'm going with Mr. We still won. I can't believe C to bottom.
Oh. So in junior high academics, Cedar Bayou led in the second. This is the second 9 weeks at 97%. Gentry at 95, EF Green at 89%, Horseman at 88, Highlands at 87, and Baytown Junior 86. With 1,178 total junior high athletes, 10,061 were passing, which gave us passing percentage of 90% total.
Very good.
All right, which high school had the highest passing percent for athletes for the second 9-week report card?
Let's see. The blind. I just closed my eyes and just.
Oh, wow. We had a change in the lead here. Okay. All right. So the high school academics was Ross S. Sterling at 92%, and GCM in second place at 87%, and REL Robert E. Lee at 84%. There's 1,585 total high school athletes, 1,401 passing, gives us an 88%. The total of all schools, junior high and high school, is 89%. Which high school logged most community service hours for the first semester? No, it's not the blue one.
Look, I pushed 2. Oh, I got correct.
Get back up, y'all.
Uh-oh. So the high school community service hours,
I got my name
GCM led the pack with 860 community service hours. Sterling in second with 628, and Robert E. Lee with 626, which gives us a total of 2,114 for high school athletics. Next one, which junior high logged the most community service hours for the first semester?
Yeah.
Uh-oh. Then it's not, it would have been wrong.
Lost my lead.
No one said it'd be Horseman.
So Horseman is the right answer.
Oh, wow.
And they have 590. My eyes are starting to go bad over here.
Before I really wreck my brain, what's the prize?
We can't tell you right now.
You can go home.
Okay. So Horseman at 597, CBJ at 454, Baytown Junior at 290, Gentry 281, EF Green 190, and Highlands at 159. The total junior high is 1,971 community service hours for high school, 2114, which gives us a total of 4,085. What was this? I think this is it. What was the total number of athletes currently participating for Goose Creek CISD Athletics at the end of the second 9 weeks? Oh, yeah. This is the honors class, I'm telling you.
That was a guess. I'm on green. All right. I felt like I was at the casino. Okay.
No one got it.
All right, so if you look at the bottom piece there, it says total is 2,763. Again, with junior high 1178 and high school at 1585, and that's just the total numbers, both of them put together.
So what color was that?
Green.
Okay, so right now blue came in third. Wow. Helen in the second place, and number one would be
This is your new guy. All right. You think you
So I just wanted it. I thought we just wanted it to be a little bit different for you guys.
Yeah.
You know, have a little fun doing it, and you know, it's trying to be a little bit creative in what we do. So just want to say thank you for the opportunity and thank you for having us here tonight, and just wish you the best of luck, and to all of you, Happy New Year. So.
And just to let you all know that you're all winners to us, and we will give you free admission to any of the UIL athletic competitions.
get into it.
All right, great presentations. Thank you all very much for your leadership. Obviously, Executive Council Athletics has now set the bar. You have to come up with something similar as Kahoot for all your future presentations.
I do have a bigger trophy I can give you.
Okay, Dr. O'Brien, we will move right into action items, 7A, 7B, and 7B1, and 7B2. And we'll read those, and I'll move over to you to kind of go over all of those, if
We'll
you don't
go ahead
mind.
and take the very first one independently, 7A, consideration of the rezoning recommendations for Goose Creek CSD as presented this evening to you.
Okay.
Administration does recommend option B, I think it was, during her presentation, and that is administration's recommendation to move forward with rezoning.
Okay, do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to be approved. There been any further discussion?
Yes. I want to make a comment. We didn't get many responses, but once we vote this in, you're going to get some responses. I guarantee you that. I just
It's
hope we're
too
moving in the
late,
right
baby.
direction.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. Appreciate that. All right, now as we call for the vote, all in favor, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, full count. It's approved.
All right, next
Motion
up would
carries.
be our consideration of consent agenda, number 7B1, proposed low attendance waivers for Alamo, Asheville, Austin, Benuelos, Bowie, Clark, De Zavala, Harlem, Highlands, Hopper, Lamar, Lisle, San Jacinto, Travis, Walker, Baytown Jr., Gentry Jr., Lee High School, and Point Alternative for the day, January 23rd, 2025. Number 2, adoption of the resolution authorizing employee pay during the emergency closure of the district. Number 3, memorandum of understanding with Chambers County, Texas, and conveyance of a 350-foot wide drainage easement, and a 50-foot wide temporary easement pursuant to section 272.001 of the Texas Local Government Code. Number 4, proposed changes to DEA, local compensation and benefits, emergency closure authorization. Number 5, RFP number 24-013 for fine arts equipment, supplies, and related services. Number 6, final option to extend RFP 21.010 for grease trap maintenance services. And finally, number 7, tax refunds as presented. Administration does recommend approval of the consent agenda.
Do I have a motion for approval of the consent agenda for items 7B1 through 7B7?
Can I ask a question right fast?
Yes, I'm sorry.
On the low attendance, that was at what period of time?
Snow.
Was that during the snow?
That was the day returning from the snow.
Oh,
Yes.
returning.
The first day back. Some families stayed home.
Oh, okay, so the ones that we didn't were...
When we apply for an low attendance waiver, what the state considers is what is our normal attendance on that particular day over a projected period of time, say the last 3 years, what was our attendance?
Okay,
And
so
they would award us for the attendance for that waiver amount.
So 19 were under.
Yes, sir.
But the rest of them
Anything below our typical average of 90, 94%, we can apply for a waiver.
Okay.
And these were in the range of mid-80s to high 80s, if I recall.
Yeah, that's all out.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Can I get a little clarification on B3? It was not attached, the MOU wasn't attached to our board packet. And I just want to be sure that the maintenance portion of that, as discussed in closed session, is a part of that MOU.
I was going to say, it was a presentation at a previous meeting. Ms. Garcia? Mr. Benoit?
Specifically that we will not be liable or responsible for maintaining that.
The short answer is yes.
Thank you.
Yes, we will not.
Not the short answer, the correct answer.
We will
You
not
are
have
correct.
to maintain that,
You are
correct?
correct.
And that's the MOU piece. We talked about a drainage easement, but we added an MOU piece to make sure that we had a formal agreement with Chambers County for them to maintain that in perpetuity.
Right. I just want to make sure that that was what we were voting on since we discussed in closed session. Thank you.
Great question. Any others? Madam President, we would retain our recommendation to approve consent agenda.
Okay, motion is still on the table. Do I have a motion for approval?
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I second.
Mr. Clem motion and Mr. Campisi second. All in favor, please raise your hand. Approved unanimously, and it passes. Thank you, Noemi. Okay. Now, Dr. O'Brien, we will move to 7C for future board agenda items, board training meetings, future board agenda.
Just the calendar that administration has thrown forward in things that either on the calendar, the annual calendar, and or that board members have asked for. We will have a middle of the year CNI update, an HR update, and a special education update at the next board meeting, subject to the board's authorization and or pleasure.
Okay, and that was 7.
I'm sorry, did I leave something?
Yeah, we didn't get to that one yet. That's 7C3A. It's the one for the board meetings.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, to include that, board training governance camp is March 5th through 8th. And then, of course, the board meetings needed would be the special call meeting to have an election order with joint agreement. However, it's my understanding that if there are no opponents, we can withdraw that order. Is that correct, Noemi?
Right, but we need to have the order in place.
Okay.
Before we can cancel.
Okay. So it'll be a call meeting on that date. Okay, thank you. We need to vote on that now, or we good?
San Antonio.
We have to vote on that, make a motion for it at this time? Okay.
So this is the time where the board can discuss the time of that meeting. We have, when we have a special call meeting, the requirement is to have a quorum only.
Yeah.
And so it can be 4 members that can agree upon time, whether it be a lunch meeting, a 4 o'clock meeting, a 6 o'clock meeting.
Who's
At your
available
pleasure.
the 13th, 4 o'clock or 3 o'clock meeting? Give me your preference.
I'll be out of town.
Okay, Jesse? He's working. Mr. Sampson? I need you now. We got 2 down.
Look, long as it's not.
Always absent. Even when he's here.
Yeah.
Long as it's not 2
13th.
o'clock.
How you looking?
The 13th is
I can do it in the evening.
is Thursday.
Ms. Campisi, how would you look at a 3:30, 4 o'clock meeting?
Iffy, 5 o'clock would be more
Well, okay.
definite.
Is 5 okay with you? Mr. Sampson, 5, and Mr.
Yeah,
I'm working.
I have Lynchburg Chamber
You have to
Gala
be here.
What,
that evening later. So
what's the
the
latest
earlier the
time
better
to be
for
able
me.
to-
It'd be 5 o'clock would be the best case scenario.
We have 4 for 5, so we're good, and Dr. O'Brien, so we're good.
So later
So
would
5
be better
p.m.
for you?
on the 13th.
Even with 5 above,
We were sidebar discussing after 5 would work better for myself and Mr. Renteria, if anyone else could do
On
that.
what day?
13?
The 13th.
Oh, yeah, we were looking at 5. Is that okay? Sure.
5,
All right, you can make
5:15.
it? Good deal. Thank you, both. So we should have, anything else?
5 p.m.
5 p.m., yes. Okay. So, do I have to make a motion, Ms. Garcia? Okay. Okay, do I have a motion for approval for the special meeting for election order and joint agreement for February the 13th for 5 p.m. here in our boardroom?
So moved. Second.
Moved and second. Moved by Ms. Guy, second by Mr. Campisi. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay. Any opposed? Substantion? Okay. too substantial.
But you're not going to be.
Okay.
That concludes administration's business. Madam President, back to you for closed session.
Okay.
Hold up, on a future item
You wanna add something?
on the agenda, I'd like to get an update on the cost, if there are any, for the repurposing of Lamar. Want to know how much it costs, where we're at
On
with that.
Lamar, on the repurposing, okay.
Repurposed,
Who did I talk to about that today? Somebody.
Oh.
The cost on repurposing Lamar?
Right, we can provide
We
that.
can
We
add
just,
that?
it's
To the next agenda?
possibly, it's a work in progress right now. We don't have those
Right.
numbers just yet.
Once we have it, then we can look
Well,
at
we can
adding
get
it.
an update, it don't have to be
It's
financial.
an update?
Right.
Yeah, where we're at so far?
Right.
Okay,
I got something also.
okay.
I'd like to get two parts. I'd like to get a review from the police department, since we got a new chief and everything. I'd like to get a status on his department. And the second part would be a closed session item of salaries that they have and what, how is it going to affect our budget and everything.
Dr. Bollinger, is that a part of the HR update as presented at the next regular scheduled meeting that you're scheduled for, C1B? Okay.
Thank you. Anyone else or anything else? Mr. Martinez, anything? Okay. The board will now recess in a closed session pursuant to one or more of the following section of the Texas Government Code. Section 551.071, 072, 073, 074, 075, 076, 082, 083, 084, and 087. No action will be taken while the board is in closed session. The time is now 7:52.
Dr. Martinez, I have to know, did the person get their cell phone back?
Okay. The board will now reconvene into open session. The time is now 9:07. No action was taken while the board was in closed session. Dr. O'Brien, as we move forward.
Madam President, we have consideration of personnel at this point.
Please proceed.
So administration would bring before the board this evening for approval to accept the resignations and retirements as presented.
I'll move to approve.
Okay, it was moved by Ms. Guy and second by Mr. Sampson. All in favor, show your hand. Motion moved, carries 100%.
And we do have just a couple of administrative elections to present to the board this evening. We have Jessica Amaya Curiel as counselor at Highlands Junior High.
So moved.
I'll second.
Moved by Mr. Campisi, second by Ms. Guy. All in favor, raise your hand. It passes all.
Next up, we have Student Success and Academic Excellence District Liaison, Jennifer Garan.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Guy, second by Mr. Campisi. All in favor, please show your hands. Approved by all. Motion carries.
Excuse me, Madam President.
Yes.
Once again, and I've asked this forever.
They're not here.
Right. At least have them show up at a meeting and so we can see.
Did you ask her?
I ask it all the
I
time.
ain't never heard you ask her.
He asked at every meeting.
I've seen you at ear doctor.
Okay.
Dr. Bollinger, could you make that a request of the proposed candidates to be present at the next board meeting?
Yeah, if that's a requirement, we can do that.
It's a request, not a requirement.
Yeah,
Request.
just a request.
Those who can and those who.
Howard Sampson would like to meet them in person.
Okay, we'll proceed on the agenda. Dr. O'Brien?
We would accept a motion for dismissal, adjournment.
Okay, there's no further business before this board. This meeting is adjourned at 9:10. Good night.
You was close.
Thank y'all. Thanks, guys.